So I was at a meetup with the Edmonton Innovation Development Committee, and I heard that interesting stat that 70% of entrepreneurs don't try again after they fail, which is pretty sad because they've learned all those lessons. And imagine what would happen if they went one more time.
Welcome to the Network Marketing Made Simple podcast. I am your host, Scott Aaron, and each and every week I'm going to come to you with short, simple, and powerful tactics of how you can grow your network marketing business, brand, bank account, and impact on those around you. And just remember, network marketing is not easy, but it can be made easy with simple steps to create the success that you truly deserve. Welcome to episode 72 of the Network Marketing Made Simple podcast. And if you are a returning listener, then welcome back. And if you are a brand new listener to the podcast, then welcome. And as always, if you are a seasoned or new network marketer and you are building your business primarily through the resources of Facebook and Instagram, and your business has stalled out, your income is going backwards, and you're not getting the reach that you once were when you first started, and you're not yet using LinkedIn, then head over to my website, www.scottaaron.net, where you can learn more about me. We can set up a free 15-minute discovery call where we can see if we're a good fit for helping each other in growing your business on LinkedIn. So I have another amazing interview set up for you guys today. And this is actually going to be on the marketing side of network marketing and entrepreneurship, because again, as great it is for all of you guys to hear the success of the network marketers that are doing it, it's just as important to hear the success of the entrepreneurs in the marketing field and profession and industry of what advice they have for you guys listening to this and how you can make your business better. So again, instead of me telling the person's story, I'm going to let my person tell their story. So Tom Jackson, welcome to today's show.
Hey, Scott, it's great being on your podcast, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely, brother. So tell the audience a little bit about you, about Jackson Labs, and how that came about, and your entrepreneurial journey.
Sounds good. Let's see. I've kind of always been. I was the lemonade stand entrepreneur as a kid, always looking for ways to try and build a business. Was doing that as the kid, grew up. My family owned an infrastructure management company up here in Canada. And that's kind of where I got my feet wet in the world of running a business. My dad kind of put me on a snow removal contract when I was 16 and could drive. And it was kind of my responsibility to make sure that everything was taken care of. And to add salt to that, he put me in like our big boss's neighborhood. So I had to make sure like I was always on time, and that kind of taught me a lot about discipline. And when I was 18, I ended up parlaying some of the money I was making doing that into starting a denim brand, because I was always passionate about, just branding in general and like how to build a good reputation for getting things done and all those sorts of things. So I wanted to build a company that kind of embodied potential, right? Like what people are capable of. So I started importing fabric from Japan, Japanese raw denim, sent it to LA, turned it into jeans. One of my first lessons in entrepreneurship was I spent way too much money on the product development and production side of things, which didn't leave me much room for marketing and design. So being resourceful, I learned how to use Photoshop, Illustrator, WordPress, and kind of started my marketing journey. I ended up, and listening to your podcast kind of helped me connect the dots on that. which is interesting because, yeah, as I was building my denim brand selling jeans, my customers, which were at the very beginning, my friends and friends of friends and so on, they ended up showing and wearing these jeans, and people started asking them about them and saying, hey, like, that's a cool pair of jeans you have there. What's the story? And so they would tell them that, yeah, a local person has been developing this brand, making Japanese raw denim out of LA and selling it around Edmonton.
Wow.
So it kind of, they didn't want the jeans as much as they wanted the branding, almost, like some of these people. And they would come to me and say, hey, I really love this brand and the jeans, but we have this business that we need rebranding. We need a website. We need help with digital marketing. And can you help us? So after 7 years of doing the jeans, I kind of hit a point where I was like, I don't know if this is the best way to achieve my goal in life of helping people kind of like reach their potential. Like, obviously helping someone to understand their personal brand and like how clothing and appearance plays into that, and developing authenticity is good for whatever you network marketing, right? Like, your vibe attracts your tribe. Yeah. And it's, if you can kind of hone in on that from a visual perspective and say, this is who I am, this is who I want to represent outwardly. Like 70% of communication is nonverbal. The amount of people we actually interact with that exist is like 1%. So if you're walking down the street in Manhattan and you don't talk to anyone, or you at least have this brand that's kind of speaking. That's why I was attracted to clothing and fashion, is because I could help people leverage what I've learned in life by just dressing accordingly. So yeah, the network side led to building websites, doing branding, consulting, and design, and which eventually led me into starting Jackson Labs officially in 2012. And I had picked up a contract to do a catalog for an oil services company, which was kind of like, okay, I don't really want to focus on the other things. I'm going to apply myself full speed ahead into helping businesses be better, because I think the impact that will have versus the clothing is going to be larger. Mm. Yeah. And since then, I've pretty much just said yes to helping people tackle their problems. And I've kind of come up with a way to move the ball forward effectively for businesses, right? Because in the world of digital marketing, branding, and just like the new modern 21st century way of doing business with technology, there's a lot, and it can be overwhelming. And it's sometimes good to have someone on the team that can just say, hey, like, where are we trying to go? And let's start making progress towards that. And as we take action, like the whole Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg says, move fast and fail often, right? Like, let's move this engine forward. And that's kind of where it's gotten me to, is like helping brands build out content and helping them understand how like the fashion side of things plays into like the culture of a brand and what they're going to attract. So one of the things that I really like to focus on from an individual perspective and how it plays in network marketing is like, what's your LinkedIn profile picture look like, right? Mm. Like, start there. Most, like, some people, I have a lot of contacts that are in like IT recruiting, and before they had a picture that was kind of like them farther away in the shadow. And I'm like, no, we need to get people to see your face, right? Because if they see your face in like a warm, inviting way, then you're automatically starting to build trust, right? It's going to take a lot of trust to build the relationship with people. And it's just interesting how being aware of those touch points plays into network marketing, right?
And branding. I mean, you hit the nail right on the head. Faces connect, and I talk about this in presentations and podcasts all the time, that the person that builds the best rapport, relationship, and trust with another person is going to have the best kind of business. So in respect to network marketers, because they are completely oversaturated and overwhelmed with social media, posting everything that they're posting on Facebook and Instagram and all this stuff. And obviously you and I connected on LinkedIn and we just hit it off right away, and we're doing some bigger things together outside of this interview. But outside of that, what problem do you see that a lot of network marketers are being faced with as far as improper ways of marketing and branding themselves? Number one, what are they doing wrong? And number two, what's a small thing they can do to improve their reach, their engagement, and building their brand?
So one of the things I think that's wrong with the environment that's out there is there's a lot of very manufactured things being produced, right? When I look back on the best ideas and the greatest things that I've seen move forward, there's always this root of raw authenticity to it, where it's like, this is a naturally occurring thing and they're just capturing the lightning in a bottle and repurposing it. I think a lot of people that are out there spending money on advertising and trying to build these funnels, it's a little more manufactured. And so it all kind of feels the same way. Whereas like you catch Gary Vee, he just has someone following him around, D-Rock, and they pull the message from his life, right?
Yeah, it's basically he's just having a giant jam session every day, just being who he is.
Yeah, and then they pull that and then edit it into the pieces of content that are going to resonate, and then they reach out and market it to these people, right? Which I think it's hard, because at that point it takes a lot of effort, right? Like he has someone following him around all the time and a production crew pulling it. So it's like, for the single person, that's tough, right? But they have to find creative ways. Like, for instance, this podcast, right? It's a very authentic conversation between us. There was just like a couple minutes of, hey, this is what we're going to talk about. And now we're rolling it, and you're going to capture what you capture from it, and it'll be good. I think it's about that. And but most people are afraid to have that right. And I'm not even excluded from this, right? Like, it is scary to just rawly put yourself out there and see where it goes, right? I was watching that David Letterman show with Ellen DeGeneres, and they just have an hour-long conversation. Obviously, they're prepared on some things, but you can see just like them being vulnerable about stuff, right?
I watched the one with Obama, and last night myself and my fiance, we watched the one with Tina Fey, and it's just having a conversation.
Yeah. So I think that helps, like, from a brand building perspective. I was having a conversation with a lady who owns a cushion company. It's called Kusha, Khousa. And she asked me a really interesting question that got me thinking. It's like, how long does it take to build a brand?
Oh, wow. That's a loaded question.
It is a loaded question, because I think you have a brand no matter what, but then it kind of got me thinking about like the process of like honing in on your brand, right? Like, as you go forward through time, who you are and what's important to you, like, it gets reinforced because you're faced with decisions and you're like, hey, these are the pillars I'm going to cling to, right? So part of it is just putting yourself out there, having those conversations with people that are raw and authentic, whether it's at a networking event, and just like, this is what I'm up to.
Yeah.
That's kind of been my approach. And like, there's been a lot of times where it's gone sideways because my mind just isn't clear enough on what I'm trying to do, and I'm working it out. But the best way for me to work it out is talking to someone, right? So I take their feedback and I'm like, okay, this is something to focus in on of mine. And then I think in the end, that just helps you create a clearer version of yourself, which in the world we live in with digital marketing and the ability to connect with almost anyone of 5 billion people on the planet, right?
Yeah.
Like, knowing who you are fundamentally and who you want to be connected to is important, right? Like,
Oh, so good.
it may not be like, I didn't know it was Scott Aaron, right? But I knew I'm connected to people and have a desire to reach out to entrepreneurs, people who are promoting good value in their work. And when you came in front of me, it's like, no brainer. This is Scott. Like, we should talk.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
I don't know.
no, I those were some golden nuggets right there. So what's a piece of advice in a very heavily oversaturated digital and branding world that we live in right now? You know, because the network marketer is a little bit different. These are people that, you know, they have a high employee mentality that they're working on getting rid of so they can become their own boss. What's the number one tip you would give either someone starting out in network marketing or even the seasoned network marketer that is used to doing the belly to belly thing? And, you know, because we've moved into this digital age and we've moved into this social media world, what's the number one tip you would give someone in starting out in building their brand and becoming the best version of themselves on social media?
That is a good question. The number one tip for someone looking to be the best version of themselves on social media. Whew. It depends a little bit. Like, I'm thinking immediately what comes to mind is I've been using LinkedIn a lot to reach out to people, right? And it's understanding how people that you want to engage with like to be engaged with, right?
Yeah.
So lately I've been doing some sales consulting for a logistics company, and I've been doing a lot of cold outreaching through LinkedIn to chief logistics officers and people like that around. And it's been interesting because, like, you got to find that balance between, like, I'm going to get this person's interest right now, deliver them some value, but not blast them with the craziest long message imaginable, right? Like, I think it's just that sweet spot, at least for the direct engagement stuff, like Instagram DM, all that sort of stuff kind of plays into that, because I think that is one of the more powerful tools, because if you can leverage that properly, you can get your way into like influencer circles, and then your reach is going to explode versus like, hey, I'm going to just keep pumping out content. Obviously, you need to have some content and be doing a decent job of that on a regular basis to show that, like, hey, I'm on this, right? But I think that direct message tool, if people can figure out a way to just like get the real world conversation going through it, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not, I need to sell you something, click here, buy now. It's like, hey man, I've been following what you guys are doing. I love it. I've noticed these things, would love to just catch you for 15 minutes and maybe introduce myself, right?
It's one of those things you just have to ask. Just ask to connect. So let me ask you this. No matter what the business, network marketing, entrepreneurship, whatever, how important is having a clear and definitive why when you're in business?
Yeah, that's paramount to any sort of success, right? Like, if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, you're not going to make it through the hardest days of your life as an entrepreneur, because like, obviously the training wheels are off, and it's you and your team, and you have to motivate your team if you're their leader. So that why is going to help align everything, right? Like, Bill Gates had a why, and that was to have a computer on every desk at every house, right? Like that's a pretty powerful why that drives action, because why are we here? We want to give people technology to make their lives easier. How do we know we've succeeded? Well, because there's going to be a computer on everyone's desk. So that like helps determine action, because you're like, is what we're trying to do going to lead us to the result of everyone having a computer on their desk? Yes or no? Which kind of, I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of flow, but that's kind of like a business version of flow, is like having that well-defined why that you can kind of track progress and use as a barometer of like, are we moving in this direction? Yes or no? I think that's a very important thing.
Well, you hear it from Simon Sinek all the time, the golden circle. People don't care about who you are and what you're doing. They care about why you're doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you can be clear and definitive about why you're doing something, when you know the passion and purpose behind why you're doing it, you can't be stopped. All right, final question before we go. So I want you to speak directly to that network marketer that is considering quitting. You know, they're watching their upline and they're watching that person make all this money. They're playing the comparison game. How important is it to focus on putting yourself first and being the best version of yourself to succeed in business?
Well, when you say that, I was actually at a meeting yesterday where I heard an impressive stat that said 70% of entrepreneurs don't try again when they fail. And that's interesting, because that's like, imagine all those lessons that you've taken from the journey of entrepreneurship, and to never try again. Like, you're almost putting a lot of that to waste, right? So it's I kind of look at it from the mentality of like, yeah, someone that's about to give up, right? Like, I've had those days where it's like, how am I going to do this, right? Like, I bit off way more than I can chew. I don't know if I can actually achieve this goal. But then I'm like, damn it, like, if I don't do this, then I'm not going to achieve my purpose, right? Like, this is the only path forward. So what I would advise people who are thinking about quitting is to just maybe detach for a bit, like a day or two or whatever it takes, and really just meditate on it, right? Like, what have I learned? What am I not doing right? Right? Get real honest with yourself about that, and just really try and like zero in on how things can be better, and like at least give it one more shot, in a sense, right? Like, I think that's the key, is we give up too easy, because it is hard, but it's hard for a reason, because at the end of it is the freedom and the ability to live a life that you want, right? Like, it's not for everyone, but at the same time, I'm the person that I want to have a certain set life schedule. And I think the only way that I can wake up in the morning, maybe go play golf, have meetings, then go do a workout, and then go to more meetings, and then go to family, is like entrepreneurship, because I don't think anybody just wants to give that away. I think you have to build it, and it's not going to be easy. So, but you have to spend a little time recalculating and recalibrating if it's not working, right?
Yeah, I always tell people that there's millions of ways of how to succeed, and there's only one way to fail, and that's to quit. And Les Brown also talks about it. He goes, those that take the easy road end up living a hard life, but those that take the hard road end up living an easy and purposeful life. And I think there's a lot of merit to that. And I think you stated that beautifully. So Tom, I really, really appreciate you and the content that you brought to the podcast today. I know so many network marketers are gonna really, think twice about quitting when they realize just sitting back for a day or two and recalibrating, looking within yourself to find that why, to dig down deep, because if your why is not waking you up in the middle of the night, then it's not deep enough. So before we sign off, Tom, how can people learn more about you, about Jackson Labs, and how can they connect with you?
Yeah, they can find me on social media. My personal account is the Mr. Jackson, and Jackson is Jaxon. And if they would like to check out my website, they can go to jacksonlabs.com, and that's JAXONLABS.com. I am always interested in learning about what people are up to. And yeah, my goal is ultimately to build the rock star team of business problem solvers. So if you were one of them, go check out my website and maybe click on the partnership tab in the Connect world, and let's talk.
Awesome. So Tom, thank you again for your time today. And for all the listeners, again, I'd love to hear your feedback. Definitely check Tom out on social media. Connect with him if he piqued your interest in anything that he's doing. And everyone, please enjoy the rest of your day, and I will talk to you next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you again so much for checking out this week's episode. And if you can, head over to iTunes, search for Network Marketing Made Simple, leave me a 5-star rating, basic review. I would be grateful for all of the support you guys can give me. And again, if you'd be interested in learning more how to utilize LinkedIn to grow your business, your brand, and your bank account, head over to my website, www.scottaaron.net. Fill out the form for your free 15-minute discovery call so I can learn more about you, your business, and how we can work together. And again, thank you guys so much. Grateful for you all, and I'll see you next time.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.